Felix was talking about, on his example with the organ, on the tactile feedback that we still need to kind of like to create still like these emotions when we interact or when we build an interface. And I think that's a perfect transition to Bruna Petreca, a QM PhD candidate from Design Products from the Royal College of Art. She explored the understanding of tactile experiences in interactions with objects and what may be important to consider when designing technology to support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Helene, for organizing. Yes, so I think most of us, most of the speakers till now were talking about a lot about the technology. I'm going to give some steps backwards, and I'm going to talk about how we experience the material world, but focusing on textiles. And when I was invited by Helene to talk, she said that this series of talk would be about radical atoms. And then I was thinking, oh, I don't know if it's really radical what I'm thinking, because I'm just thinking about how people touch textiles. And then I thought, well, okay, let me try to define these radical atoms in 3 words to help me focus my talk. And then I went, okay, radical atoms. I read everything that Hiroshi wrote, and it went like change shape for me. Change shape, they adapt, and they are relational. And okay, textiles, we wear them every day. They're very pervasive in our experience. They are in our body, in our environment. Okay, they are quite adaptable. They are relational because we are in conversations with them all the time, and they change shape, definitely. Clothes only happen when we wear them. This is the only product design that really happens only when we wear them. So I think I'm fine. Okay, textiles are a good metaphor to start looking into this radical atoms relation. So, and also I was thinking about my favorite fashion designer, and Yo Yamamoto, he says that fabric is alive and the real thrill lies in taming the tail of a living thing. So I thought, okay, I'm totally fine talking just about how we touch textiles. And that's what I'm going to do today. I'm really happy to see some of the fashion design students here today because my research is mainly made for them. So, yeah. So we somehow tried to do that taming the tail some time ago, since 2009, when we were trying to do, find ways to communicate the multisensory properties of textiles through digital applications. And this was in a big collaboration called Digital Sensoria, and one of the outcomes were these interactive videos that they were produced with really cheap technology because we wanted to create something that people could just take on our method and develop their own videos and then use this application called iShugo, which you can find in just 2 papers that we published some time ago in Kai. And yes, so there we were looking into this handling of textiles, but really feeling that limiting the limits of the technology that Hiroshi spoke about earlier as well. We were looking into this 2D flat screen, touch screen, and trying to translate touch with a responsive material, a soft material that really reacts and touches back. So that was a difficult experience. Although those interactive videos, they represented a clear step forward. If you go shopping online today, you still find pictures of static textiles. You don't have these interactive videos yet, although we did it in 2010. Yes, so they were helping us to better understand some of the properties of textiles, but still really far from the experience of the actual touching of textiles. We soon realized that this technology that we were developing was not really there, but actually that technology might not be ready to fully support these experiences. Certainly, they can't mimic our experience digitally, but could it be that really what we should be doing is not really emulating these experiences, it might not be the way to go. We learned that quickly through a study that we conducted in a textile fair, where we took our iPads with our prototype tool to the designers, and they were telling us, oh cool, we can really understand the textile better, blah, blah, blah. But in the end, all of them would finish with something like, I can't feel. And then I was like, oh, okay, we can feel. I can't feel either. But okay, so what shall we do? What shall I do now? And then I was thinking about that. To carry on doing the research that we were doing, we had to change a little bit the question that we were asking. And I'm talking about we. I'm inserting myself into the bigger picture of the textile industry. And the textile industry has a history of investigating the tactile interactions with textiles, but with a focus on the textile. So we're looking at how does it feel. We're trying to characterize the fabric. We're not looking into the interaction. We're not looking at how people feel. And this has been done, that's a long story since the 1930s, starting with Pierce into bending properties, and then Kawabata in Japan, who did this first panel of experts touching fabrics, and they were developing these amazing methods and machines to measure the textile hand. So this is how they identify so the whole interaction with textiles, they define it as is a concept called textile hand, which are the tactile sensations or impressions that occur when fabrics are touched, squeezed, rubbed, or otherwise manipulated. So anyway, everything that all of these people were trying to do were well-defined, systematic approaches interested in replicating and controlling the feel of textiles. So they were looking into creating this standardized and reliable predefined scales that would measure the compressional, tensile, shearing, and bending properties of textiles. And many times they would have also panels of experts that would be trained to touch fabrics, but pretty much like machines, so they would have to all touch the same way so that they could compare how they feel. And so, as you can see, the industry today is capable of supporting these objective needs. They are able to specify fabrics, and they're able to assure quality of the fabrics. But these are mainly aimed at eliciting verbal descriptions, so they can name how the fabric feels. They can say it's rough, it's smooth, it's this and that. Or they can express these properties numerically as well. But unfortunately, these methods are very technical, and they're focusing on this usability aspects, and they're not able to capture or take into account the tactile experience of the designer. And as the literature suggests, the designer knowledge is tacit and implicit. So we have in one side this objective part being well supported by the numbers, but everything abstract and actually alien to designer's practice. But on the other side, first, how do we support feel? But second, we don't even know what feel is. So, and why are we interested in designers? Because designers, they have this specialist knowledge. How do we know that? We have looked a lot into the literature, but also we've run studies ourselves in which we were getting experts and non-experts to judge fabrics against predefined scales. And we realized that designers and non-designers, so experts, non-experts, they can tell pretty much the same way how fabrics feel on the extreme of these scales. But in the middle, this more nuanced differences, non-experts, they find it really hard to articulate what they perceive, whereas designers, they're very good at naming these nuanced differences. And this is because we're trained to do that. And so since all of those insights from this research, I was really interested to change that question from how does it feel to actually how do they do that? How do designers feel textiles? So I'm really looking into the how. So finally I arrived to the topic of my talk today. So I'm going to be talking to you about this. It's a paper we just published in the Affective Computing and Intelligent Interaction Conference. It was in the end of September. So I'm going to report now on a study that I run. I took a qualitative approach method called Edicitation interview method. In this type of interview, we focus on how and what of the experience. We never ask why, never ever. This interview process is very particular, and it belongs to a field of knowledge that is just emerging, which is called microphenomenology. And it's deriving from studies by Francisco Varela in neurophenomenology. And what we do here when we do this type of interview is to look at experience in a very, very detailed manner. And to do so, we choose very small moments in our experience. So that's why when I interview designers, I would have them touching fabrics for only 20 seconds, because that is a lot already. And when I look into those 20 seconds, I have to zoom in a slow motion manner And I help the interviewee to evoke, become aware, and articulate their experience through the questions that really focus on how and not why. Yes, and to do this study, I focused on a specific context of inquiry. I was looking into how the designers experience textiles when they select them within the design process. And I run this study with 6 professionals from fashion and textiles field with experience between 7 and 30 years. The interview was split between 2 phases. In the phase 1, it would take 20 minutes and it would be just about this 20 seconds of having a textile experience with one fabric. And then I would have them for 40 minutes, we would evoke the experience of making a textile selection. So it could be an experience that they really lived, in fact, in their career previously, and we would try to evoke. Or if they preferred, we would do an in situ selection. So that means I would have a pre-selection of fabrics, and they would select from my pre-selection, and then I would interview them about the experience that they just lived. And then for the analysis, I did thematic analysis. Today I'm reporting just on the first part about the tactile experience, not on the experience of the selection. And for the tactile experience, what I found were these 3 tactile-related themes, which I called them situate, simulate, and stimulate. And then I'm also reporting on these themes. They happen always with 3 types of attention and touch disposition, which I called active hand, passive body, and active tool hand. I'll explain this fully inside each theme. So when designers encounter textiles, they situate. They will all the touch behaviors observed in these moments are about understanding the textile, understanding how it feels to the respondent. The touch behaviors aim at feeling it through different types of receptors. First, through the discriminatory ones, because we have different receptors in our body. So in the hand or in the skin where we don't have hair, we have all these different types of receptors that are related to discriminating. And whereas in the hairy skin, we also have another type of sensor, which is called CT efferents, and these are related to affective experience. So this is how we bond and we feel all the emotional and affective experiences. So we start by feeling with the hands, and then that's what you saw that she was doing this, and all of the other designers did as well. But then once they understand a little bit what the fabric is, then they start to use the affective receptors, and they would not touch with the hand, but with the other parts to feel the sensation that the fabric produces. So that's what they did. They're understanding the textile, and they are understanding how the textile feels to the respondent. The touch behaviors that they use, they are specialist ones, so they're very similar to the ones that the textile industry mapped when they were training the panels and trying to get them to compare their experience. So they would be doing this active hand exploration, comparing characteristics of textiles, their physicality. So they're asking, what is it and how does it feel? But then they don't stop there. They don't stop at the quantity of the textile. They want to understand the textiles on them. So they are then having a combination of the active hand, the passive body, which will be receiving the touch, and what I call the active tool hand, because it's not really feeling, they're not reporting on what the hand is feeling, but they're using the hand to drive the experience of another body part. So how do I feel when I am touched by this textile? So in simulating, the designer used the tactile exploration to simulate concepts and support the creative process. They use the body as a surface to test ideas, which are usually following a design brief, because they're looking for something specific. This touch behavior will be an orchestration of active and passive touch, and involves mainly passive body, active tool hand types to create these shapes and place them on top of the body and see what happens and start to simulate with this concept. Yes, so they are experimenting beyond the initial concept. They are trying to stimulate an experience that the textile can provide. This experience helps them usually to build metaphors, and they will use these metaphors to challenge the initial concept that they created. So say if they're thinking, I will create sleeve, what would that sleeve be like when using a metaphor to challenge that concept of a sleeve. And the touch behavior, as I saw, is mostly active, using both hands, and sometimes involve other parts of the body. So we're going beyond tactile behavior. we are proposing to add this active hand, passive body, and active tool hand that was not reported in the literature before. And we are proposing these purposes as well, to situate, so first to understand how it feels and how I feel when I touch it, the simulation and stimulation as well, which is more related to conceptualizing and challenging the design concept. So the Edicitation interview method enabled us to understand better what and how, because previously in HCI this method has been used to tell what people feel, but no one had used it before to tell how a process happened, and this is what we did. We tried to start unpicking how we touch, and also it gives us some light into opportunities of how technology may be able to provide this or recreate these tactile processes when the channel is missing. So in one of our studies, after experiencing tools that captures and displays visually aspects of tactile, designers suggested that the information that they were seeing could help them better understand their own experience and not just the material qualities. This was one of the prototypes we were using in a fabric fair as well. So we see that supporting freer manipulation might be an important thing to be thinking of, because for designers this is related to what the understanding that it entails, but also imagining what the fabric could become, but also imagining what do I become when I am wearing that fabric, when I'm engaging with that. So it's really a conversational, relational engagement. If we take simulate or stimulate themes as an example, the touch behaviors identified go much beyond feeling the textile physical properties, but into what the designer can make with it and how they are affected by moving it freely with hands and other body parts. So we're looking into this affective touch. We're not seeing the touch as something that is really discriminatory only anymore. So it's not only located in our hands, it's our full body. And how do we support this full body engagement? So we're looking into technology that could provide further information for a better experience when communicating characteristics of products digitally. We're thinking that we could provide multisensory feedback on the body when manipulating a product, and to provide the space for simulation to increase the possibility of metaphors generation and therefore pushing our design concepts further. And that's it.